right, I'm going to give you a breakdown of section 4. Again, I have some notes here on my phone. So the chapter starts off where Ellie is going through a quarantine. Interesting. And he is getting medically inspected. They are looking specifically for gold crowns on people's teeth. So that sometimes still happens where you could get like gold or silver tooth or something to fill a cavity. But especially in the mid to early 1900s, people would get their cavities filled with gold. Obviously, that was worth a lot of money. And so the Nazis wanted that, and so they would inspect people's teeth and strip the gold out of them, which would be an extremely painful process. And so that's where our chapter actually starts. So we learn that Ellie and his father are going to be housed in the musician's block. And this is probably one of the most calm and best places that he could be housed. He is housed with a violinist. He's housed with two brothers. You learn all of their stories. He at this point in time he meets a man named Akbar Doomer, and he really still tries to instill that how important his faith is, and that it's important that he has a strong faith during all of this, because if he loses faith, then you will most likely lose your life. They're currently at the concentration camp of Buna. And again, at the beginning of this section, we learn that he is being looked at for his teeth for the gold crown, and Ellie does have a gold crown. And so he is pulled right away and said, I want to take this crown from you. But Ellie is begging and pleading, saying, please, please, please let me keep this crown. And he actually fakes sick so that he could keep it. The dentist is another Jewish man. So the Jewish man does feel sad or bad for Ellie, and he says, okay, you can keep it for now. However, he was doing that for more people, and the Nazis found out and actually ended up killing the Jewish dentist. Ellie is eventually taken, and his crown does get taken from him in a very cruel and not okay fashion. Ellie is trying his best just to do what he's told to do. So he's on a work crew, and the man in charge is named Idek the Capo, and he is a horrible, horrible man. He gets thrown into these violent rages. He's always mad. He's angry. And one day, Ellie is just in his way, and he gets beaten nearly to death. During this rage of madness, Ellie is comforted by a woman. She offers him kindness and basically just cares for him for those few moments after he's beaten. During this time, this is one of the only times in the book he skips ahead. He recalls that several years later, after he has survived the Holocaust, he runs into the woman who took care of him in Paris. Obviously, it struck a chord with him how she cared for him, and that obviously he ended up remembering her. After he's fast forwarded a little bit, he goes back and he's back in Buna. And this time it's not Ellie who gets beaten by Idek the Capo, it's his father, who at this point is extremely sick and weak. Remember, his father is in his mid-50s. And so Ellie, being a teenage boy, is able to recover a little bit quicker, but his father is frail, his father is weak. Ellie doesn't do anything to stop it. He watches the beating. And Ellie is thinking to himself, oh my goodness, how has this concentration camp changed me so much where I wouldn't even step in and try to save my father's life. Ellie is not only angry at himself, he's not angry at the guy who beat him, Idek, but he's angry at his father. He wanted his father to stand up for himself. So Ellie's mind at this point is not in a very good place. So Ellie's tooth gets taken away from him, and they beat him basically into submission to get that taken away. Ellie witnesses some unfortunate things. He witnesses sexual assault. He witnesses rape. And because he witnesses these things, the Nazi guards actually beat him in front of nearly all of the camp because they are afraid that he will tell the other people. At the end of this chapter, there is a ton of action. So the Allies, which the United States was a part of, they put an air raid on this camp. At this point in time in the war, people aren't 100% sure what's still going on with these concentration camps, but they are getting a pretty good idea that what does go on inside of them is not okay. So during this air raid, all of these sirens go off, and the prisoners are supposed to be sent to their blocks, basically in hopes that they would stay protected. They wouldn't be out in the open. They would not be seen. During this time was the feeding hour. So whether it was lunch or dinner, there was two huge cauldrons of soup just left out in the open. And one can imagine how starved and how hungry these men are. One man during this air raid, where he's supposed to be hiding in his bunk, decides he's going to crawl to the soup. My assumption is he knows if he doesn't eat, he's going to die. If he does eat and he is successful, then he's going to survive. But he also has the idea that if I risk this, I might lose my life anyway, so we might as well try. So he finally gets the soup. He puts his hands in it, and then he's shot, dead, in front of everybody. Again, there's more issues happening during the air raid just because there's not a ton of supervision going on because the Nazis are hiding themselves too. A man attempted to steal something and the Nazis figured out who it was, and then he was publicly hanged in front of the entire camp about a week later. So, all in all, at this point, the prisoners aren't crying. Remember when Ellie got there and he was seeing these things? He had tears, he was upset. He's dead inside. He sees a young boy hanged in front of a camp and not a tear is shed, and most prisoners aren't crying either. Ellie is wondering to himself, how could God allow this to happen? God is not present to him at this point, just because God would never allow this cruelty. So Ellie, at this point in time, is mourning not only the death of these people in his camp, but he's mourning his religion. So as you finish the book this week, you are going to again get a lot more action, and it's going to go very, very fast. Remember, Ellie's father is weak, he is frail, he's no longer standing up for himself, and you're going to learn a little bit more about his experience towards the end of the book too.